sync up, and they are pjnet.tv. It is 9:32. Thanks for waiting. It's going to be worth it, folks. Our bumper is running. We're recording this. We are streaming to all kind of good places, and we are ready to start a countdown to Studio 8. Well, we're back. This is pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick. I am so glad to bring you part 2 of our program tonight. Normally, tonight would be reserved for J.D. Winninger. But many of you know that J.D. had some surgery yesterday that he's been planning for quite a long time, but he finally actually had it. And he's already back home, and I understand he's just really enjoying the painkillers or something. So he has appointed a substitute, a second string JV player, Ron Gallagher, who we've never met before. So Ron, I see that your Christmas tree is up, but thanks for filling in for JD. He's a great brother in Christ, but you know, now's the time when he needs to be kind of laid back. So we thought we'd bring a firebrand like yourself on here.
Well, I don't know about that, but at least the audience tonight is going to have fresh reasons to appreciate JD. And we are praying for him. We're JD fans around here. And as I hate to admit it, my wife, my Wonder Woman, and she really is Wonder Woman, Coach. People look at us and they say, well, wonder what she's doing with him. Well, I
can explain it. In my case, when we got married, I had money and a lot of promising future ahead. Why we're still married, it must not be that.
No, we love JD, and I'm sure my wife wonders. And sometimes she's sort of like, why can't you be more like JD? Why can't we have a Cal with names and stuff like that? Anyway. But we are praying for him and trusting that God's going to give him healing grace. I saw you raise your hand. Was you getting ready to say something?
No, I was turning up your volume, and I've got it up as far as it'll go, so I had to turn mine down because the idea is to kind of be on par with each other, but it's hard to do sometimes. But who put up your Christmas tree?
Well, actually, we had a really blessed Thanksgiving. It was the first Thanksgiving that we've been able to host, because usually Diane and I are the ones traveling. We were living in Virginia, had family in Tennessee and family in Ohio, so we were always making the grand holiday loop, and so we hadn't been able to host Thanksgiving at our home for any of the family for a long time, and so this was our first Thanksgiving in Tennessee, where we were able to have family over. And it was absolutely wonderful. It felt so good to have everybody here. And the Christmas tree was all packed in a huge box up in the attic. But we have 3 strapping young grandsons. So their chore after dinner was to work it off by bringing the Christmas tree down and putting it up. And the rest of it is all Diane's work. I have the task of saying, oh, that looks great, honey. And that's about it.
Well, maybe I should just start a new enterprise of, you can hire me to have your Christmas tree put up. And what I could do is get a bunch of kids and give them ice cream and, candy and get them to put the tree up. And I could sit back, collect the money, make the work on them. And then I can open up a business after Christmas to take your Christmas tree down. And what I do is I scan social media for all the people that are offended by Christmas decorations. And I'll just invite them over saying, well, take them down.
A true entrepreneur, folks. Well, with us, we had the added, we didn't have to pay them. We had the grandparent leverage. If you really loved us, you'd do this kind of thing. But it was a very, very special blessing, and we ran out of vocabulary to offer our praise to God for what He's provided, and just being within 10 minutes of where our children and grandchildren live is a blessing we haven't had in a long time.
Well, we are purposefully going to be very sparse on Christmas decorations this year because we have been waiting on a contractor to replace the flooring. And we finally got to the top of his list. So of course they have to move stuff around, and we have, so we're not going to have a Christmas tree, but my wife has been putting the garland and the, help me pronounce this. It's this plant. It's red and green. It's poin something.
Yeah, if you want to be accurate, it's poinsettia. If you're from where I am, it's a poinsettia.
That's right. It's a poinsettia. It's right out there by the pecan tree. It's right out there by
You got it. You got it. Yeah, I know that stuff about delayed things. We were trying to get some work on our patio out back done, and we started back in April, and about 3 weeks ago, give or take, we finally got it completed. So you have to, trials of your patience if you need any contractor work done these days.
Yeah, I think I should be a contractor. I'll just go to people's house and promise them to show up. I'm qualified.
Yeah. Go for it, brother. Well, I really do. I am honestly humbled to be able to sit in for JD, and he is somebody that we admire and have for a while, in lots of different ways. So I offer all kinds of disclaimers, and my usual thing when I speak is to say, okay, this is a point for everybody to take a deep breath and lower your expectations, so you don't get disappointed. But I struggled a bit in prayer about what God wanted me to do tonight. And there's a piece I'm working on actually for a post that I'm going to put on the blog on Saturday.
Is that at Gallagher'sPen.org or is it
Gallagher'sPen.com?
Okay. I'll put that up on the screen in a minute.
Oh, thank you. Gallagher'sPen.com. And it is PEN, not PIN, even though people say I get a little sticky sometimes. But I had been intrigued for a little bit because it's December now, and we've actually entered into the holiday season. And characteristically, you get these unanticipated surprise gifts and stuff like that because it's Christmas. So we got an early surprise gift that nobody really wanted, except for the usual fearmongers and government bureaucrats that love any reason to panic. So we got this new gift, and it's a new COVID-19 variant that all of us have been hearing about nonstop for a few days now. It's the Omicron, or if you prefer, Omicron variant on the COVID vaccine, and people are going into a panic, and it amazes me the links that some people go to. Like the governor of New York declaring a state of emergency without one case in the state anywhere. And
they're up to 5 now tonight. I heard.
Oh, wow,
yeah, and the symptoms they describe as mild. So what does that mean? They had a little fever? I think we call that the flu, don't we?
Well, that's one of the things that intrigued me, and we did get it early. So I've been telling people that it's not coming on Santa's sleigh. So don't put a mask over your chimney because it ain't gonna help you, or anywhere else. But in any case, I predict, I don't have a prophet's mantle, but I predicted, because why not, that all kinds of people are going to probably get this thing. Some of them are going to be vaccinated, some unvaccinated, some masked, some unmasked, some multi-vaccinated and multi-masked and all that kind of stuff. And probably even people that didn't vote for Donald Trump are going to get it. Who knows? And even people that wear an acidity bag. You remember those things, Coach, people used to wear around their neck?
Of what?
So you didn't get. It's an acidity bag. It's a bag full of all kinds of little herbs and stuff that you stick in this little bag, and you wear it around your neck, and it keeps off all kinds of diseases and evil spirits and your mother-in-law or whatever.
Never heard of it.
But, okay, yeah, all kinds of people are going to get it, and it won't matter what political party you belong to, or any of that those kind of stuff, because one of the few absolutely, honestly, non-biased things in this country is a virus, because the virus don't give a hoot who you voted for,
right,
or what your special interest group is, or how many personal pronouns you have acceptable in your list, or any of that other stuff. If it comes your way, you're going to get it, you get sick. So some people will, and some people won't, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not interested in a fresh debate between the vaxxers and the non-vaxxers or anything like that. What interests me is a characteristic of viruses that I find intriguing and much more worthy of concern for me than anything the virus is going to do. A couple of things we know about viruses. One is that they multiply. Obviously, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not part of the Fauci flock either. But viruses, they multiply, and as they multiply, some of them mutate. Now, this new virus, this Omicron thing, and following the Delta thing, these are mutations of the original COVID-19 virus. And so, everybody has their panic thing, but I think all this stuff going on in the country isn't about people's health. It's about who can control who. But in any case, the thing that intrigues me is that process of mutation, that the original virus begins and then it mutates, and the mutants multiply, and if enough of the mutations multiply, then it becomes a strain and a variant and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes that happens really rapidly, as with the flu virus. That's why every year you get a new kind of flu vaccine, because the other one expired or whatever, and got new strains and all that kind of stuff. Happens every year, as most of us know. And the thing that intrigued me, Coach, was thinking about Christianity, particularly Western Christianity, but Christianity as a whole in the culture. And looking back to where it came from and how it started in the beginning of the church and all that kind of thing. And the thing about the viruses that intrigues me is that you mentioned earlier on about the people that have got this new Omicron thing, Coach. The people are dying with it, right? At least not now. And the person that discovered it in South Africa said it's very mild. It's like, you get the sniffles or cold, fever for a few days or whatever, but not something that you go into a panic and start, checking on your life insurance and all that kind of thing, because it's not as deadly.
Yeah, you have to be tested at this point to find out you have it. That's how serious it is, yeah. And by the way, how is there a test for it? They just found out about it, a week ago?
Isn't that fascinating?
But if you'll get the booster, you'll be better off. How do I, really?
Oh,
how?
Sure.
Yeah. Really? How do they know that?
Yeah. And then in 2 or 3 months, you can get another booster.
Mm-hmm.
And then another booster.
Yeah, as soon as everybody gets their vaccines and boosters, they have to come up with a new strain because the pharmaceutical companies need to keep, selling vaccines. Yeah.
Oh, those poor people have to eat.
But they're free, right? They're free.
Oh, yeah.
They're free.
Just print more government money.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Pfizer's donating all the vaccines in the interest of public safety. Yeah.
So the virus injects itself or invades a host, because a virus has to have a host to live. And so in this new environment, viruses adapt to the hosts that they're in, and that's how the mutations begin to happen. In order to be more successful in whatever it's doing, which is mainly multiplying, then it makes adjustments in the host and becomes a mutation. And the interesting thing is, when the mutation multiplies, it doesn't replicate the original version, Coach. It replicates itself.
Right.
So you have mutations creating replications of itself, thus more mutations. And they become easier to transmit. In other words, they can become more contagious in the sense of a virus that humans catch. They can become more contagious, but less impactful, less severe in the symptoms. And I find that fascinating, because in the beginning with the church was incredibly powerful. And this is going to sound weird, and you might not want to have me back next week, but the church and the gospel of Jesus Christ is, in a sense, kind of a death sentence. Well, that sounds radical, doesn't it? But Jesus said some radical stuff. He said, if you want to save your life, you got to give it up. If you want to cling to your life, you're going to lose it. Paul later on said, I am crucified with Christ. And again, he wrote, present your body a living sacrifice. People didn't bring sacrifices to the altar and then take them home with them.
Right.
They cut their
Yeah.
throat, burned them on the,
Yeah. In a Ziploc bag, maybe,
you could do that. You might raise a few eyebrows, but you could do it. But and when Jesus preached not just preached, but when he demonstrated what the gospel was all about, it was about losing yourself, being willing to sacrifice and surrender everything. Jesus basically said, anything in this planet, even your parents and your family, is more vital to you than me, then you don't fit. That's a shocking thing to say. Of course, it's a comparative thing about how much you love them and how much you love him and all that. But the basic truth is the same. The cross is an end of life. And when you come to Jesus Christ, what people found was when they sacrificed their old life of sin and licentiousness, selfishness, greed, and avarice, and all of that other disgusting kinds of stuff, when they gave up all of that, they gave up that life. Jesus Christ gave them a new life. The cross was a classic death, burial, and resurrection. And the death preceded the burial, preceded the resurrection. You don't get the end without the beginning. You don't get the outcome without the initial cost. Now, what happened over the years is that, in the beginning, the church was the church. And it was called by many, as Paul pointed out in Acts 2, it was called the way. When Saul of Tarsus went after believers, he was looking for anybody of the way of Jesus. And so then later on, it got to be the church at Thessalonica, the church at Rome, the church at Corinth, and all of that. It became identifiable by the city and all that. And in some cases, the home of the people who were hosting the gathering of the church. And Paul writes in Romans 16 about people who had the church in their house and all of that. And then there are house churches, and we still have those in China and places like that. But the church began most classically with Constantine declaring that Christianity would be the religion of state in Rome and all of that. And what you had was all of these things that began to come into the church, and the church began to, if I can say it without being irreverent, the church began to mutate. The church developed new characteristics that were never in there in the beginning. The church began to adopt new practices that were never a part of it in the beginning. The church began to adopt new relationships that were not there in the beginning. And as the church mutated, it became more acceptable to the culture. That's what happens with the virus. The virus mutates, so it's more acceptable to the host. It can multiply better in the host. If you picture the local culture, the common culture, or the prevalent culture, and the church is in it, the church wants to mutate so it becomes more acceptable to the culture that it's in. If I can say so clearly, Jesus didn't send us into the stinking world to adapt and mutate to the culture. He sent us to change the culture, to be something in the culture that the culture itself would not want to accept in its present state. And so if you look around, well, where's the church become? What's become of it? A couple of times in my life, I've looked to see, well, how many denominations are there? Because, as the church mutated, you get this little group over here and say, well, we're going to have it this way. And then the other group over here, they're going to have it that way. And the first thing you know, you got 700,000 or 800,000 different Baptists. You got snake handling Baptists and tongue speaking Baptists and Baptists that dress like whoever. I look to see, well, how many denominations are, not how many believers are they, Coach, but how many denominations, separate, distinct, identifiable denominations of Christianity are there in the world? Somewhere, and nobody knows because the number keeps changing, somewhere between 41,000 and 45,000 different distinctive denominations of Christianity in the world. And then you want to ask the question, where in the hell is the power? How impactful is it? How severe, how serious, how profound, how changing, how much of it Is it likely to impact your life? Because what so many people want out of Christianity, Coach, is the same thing they want out of COVID. I don't mind getting it, just don't mess with my life. I don't mind getting it. I don't want to change anything. Give me a shot so I can get it and not be affected too much with it. And that's what's going on, I think, in the culture. Well, what do you do about that? One of the great, profound threats, and by the way, threat is the new big word. How many cases did you say there were of this? Oh my!
5 in New York as of tonight.
But it's the threat, Coach. If you listen to a mantra of all these mainstream talking heads on television, it's the threat. It's the threat. It's the threat. It's the threat.
They talked about it for 10 minutes of a 30-minute program.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's like calling 911, Coach, because you heard that somewhere, somehow, somebody broke in somebody's house and stole some stuff. So I better call 911 because it could happen to me.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But the point is that Christianity was designed by its designer to so totally affect your life that you get a new name, a new sense of a new citizenship, a new sense of who you are, why you're here, and all of that kind of thing. And it's not a thing. The church wasn't designed to be some kind of religious institution. You've talked about that, Coach. It's not that. It's not a place where you go to get your religious entertainment. It's not a place where you go to get the next self-help test, a group, or that kind of thing. And it's not some place where you go just to make social connections or business connections or all that kind of thing. It's sent to be the one force on the earth to stand against the evil that human beings are inherently capable and driven to do. And that's why we're here. So if we mutated and it's gotten so screwed up and mutated, you've got to have some kind of identifiers, definers. Well, what kind of Baptist are you? So, I was visiting a guy in my earlier days when I wasn't as suave and sophisticated as I am now. But anyway, I was talking to some guy in a hospital bed next to somebody I was visiting, and I didn't know who the guy was. I was going to have prayer with him, all that kind of stuff. And he was asking about me, and I told him I was a Baptist preacher. And he said, well, what kind of Baptist are you? And I said, oh, I'm white, and I'm about this tall, and I weigh whatever. What do you mean, what kind of Baptist am I? So he starts rattling off about 25 different Baptists, just boom, 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 hard shell Baptists and Northern Baptist, Southern Baptist, whatever kind of thing. And I thought, it's kind of sad when we have to have identifiers. We've got our own religious special interest groups. Well, which group are you with? And which school did you go to? And who did you study under? And whose doctrine on the second coming do you hold? And are you a premillennialist or a postmillennialist? And can you even spell millennial? And all that stuff. And the thing that really started all the mutations were the false teachers that came in the cultural context and began to just twist it a little bit, to change this little thing or that little thing, to add a requirement. Oh, you guys are Jewish Christians, you need to be circumcised. Or you're a Gentile Christian, you need to be circumcised because we're mostly Jewish. And so they started adding all these little things in early on. And a large part of the battle that the church fought in those early days was against the false teachers and the doctrines that were not a part of the original. Because every time you start mutating the original plan that Jesus had, you start weakening the power. I went for years, and I did ministries to churches that were struggling and stuff like that. And I guess the folks thought that if they send me into a church that's struggling and I'm there for a couple of weeks, they'll think any other struggle they had wasn't worth this, So anyway, but and there's all kinds of little things, doctrinal stuff that you find brought in, and churches are confused about what they really do believe, and everybody's got their little pin and their little thing and all that kind of stuff, but what do you do about that? Was the question. Was the question in the early church, and the thing is, Paul talked about holding fast to the doctrines you taught, holding fast to the doctrines that the apostles and the ones that were with Jesus that were called, inspired to write and preach and teach. Do what they said. Do what they said. Jesus finished up the most powerful sermon ever preached on the planet. We call it the Sermon on the Mount. And he capped that sermon, greatest sermon by the greatest teacher at the most crucial time in human history. And he capped it off with this. And he gave this little parable of two guys that were going to build a house. And you know it well, Coach. One of them had a foundation, and the other one did not. One had a foundation, was on a rock. The other one just built on sand, no foundation, just threw it together. And the storm came, and the house that was on the sand, it collapsed, and the collapse of it was tremendous. We're facing at a time, everybody talks about unity and all that kind of stuff. And I agree, one of the most awful things about facing us today about Christianity is that we're so divided. It's not just America divided between left and right and conservative and liberal and all that stuff. And it's not just the wokeism. It's the church that can't seem to get together in their concept of who we are, why we're here, and what we're about. Good night, I talked too much. If I gone way past the time, I probably have. I'm sorry. But the thing is, it's very simple. It's very simple. There's power in multiplication, but what do you multiply? If you're multiplying a mutation, you're multiplying the weakness. But if you take the life-changing, if he really did change your life, if the life you were living, you could not continue to live it that way and follow him, then you got something. And beyond that, you got this, and you go back to, wow, where did that come from? And what's that built on? And what are the things I'm supposed to be doing? And Jesus completed it, but the difference between the wise man and the foolish man, the rock and the sand, was the wise man heard what he heard, and he did it. He heard the message, heard what Jesus said, and he did it. And the other one didn't. You're a coach, you're talking to a team, and you can give all these instructions and all these directions and all these examples, but it comes down to who's going to do what you tell them to do. If you got a game plan, that game plan needs to be carried out. That's why you have it. And you may have a player that might be athletically more gifted than somebody else, but if he won't do what you tell him, what good is he?
Well, it's been said, that practice makes perfect. Well, no, because if you're not perfect in your technique, you're just learning the wrong technique better. Perfect practice makes perfect. And I think when I think perfection, I think truth. And, there can only be one truth. Okay. There are probably some things that we are not capable of understanding in terms of God, why he loves somebody like you or me for that matter. It's beyond our ability to fathom. But at the same time, we know that there is a single absolute standard of truth. And if it's true, it's unchanging. You can count on it every single time. And yet this is the phenomenon when you're speaking about the various flavors of not just Christianity, but Protestantism in general. There's too many flavors. There can only be one truth. But what good is it to know the truth? The carpenter has a plumb line. He has a level. He has a square and a tape measure. These are standards of absolute truth. Yep. Only to the extent that the carpenter is willing to comply with the truth. Doesn't do any good to have a plumb line if you say, well, no, this is close enough. Or, no, I think the plumb line is an error here. And, in flight, they teach you two things before you get in a cockpit. One is trust your instruments. Not your instincts, your instruments. And the second principle is the only time you can have too much gas is when you're on fire. So but Ron, there is one truth, and I think we need to diligently, seek out that truth, and that truth is in God's word and his, but then there's these people that have got special, remember the Gnostics came along, they had some special knowledge that was given to them. No. No.
Bottom line is we can't change what is, but we can stop replicating mutations.
Mm-hmm.
we can start replicating the original plan. We can start replicating what Jesus really sent us to do, and never mind what kind of tag somebody wants to put on it, what kind of denominational thing or creedal thing or whatever they want to put on it. If it's in the book, like you said, it's in the book, it's authoritative, you can trust it.
You play golf, Ron?
And talk carpenters and stuff. I had a buddy of mine that was going to help me build a deck, Coach, and we were building this deck, and I left my tape measure in the basement. I was going to go get it. He said, "No, you don't need that. I'll just eyeball it." And he was always eyeballing stuff. And I'm like, "No, man, I got to walk on this deck, dude. No, we ain't eyeballing nothing." But, we have a standard for a reason. And I appreciate what you said. There's only one truth, and you can't have 5 different versions of it.
Do you play golf, Ron?
I used to, but the Lord delivered me.
Okay.
No.
In golf, the professionals, you have a thing called par. That's the, and they say, if you shoot par, you're an exceptionally great golfer. You should be a pro. Well, I got news for you. If you shoot par, you were only doing what is normal, what is expected. That's not above the average. That's the average. But see, the pros, the difference between the pros and the Joes is the pros do those average things consistently well, and it's not that they have any spectacular super technique that they have discovered and mastered. No, they just do the basics very, very well. And I think the same thing could be Christianity is simple enough for a 7-year-old to understand.
Yeah, it is.
Or to accept.
And I love golf, but 4 hip replacements and a knee replacement and a few other things. Just, swinging the club's not an elegant sight when I do it.
No. Well, Ron, thank you for sharing with us tonight. You've got me thinking. I've got other work to do tonight, so I don't know if I'll be able to get it done contemplating all that you've given us. And if I may make the point, a good virus or a good parasite, if they're smart, they won't kill their host. They just want to suck you dry. They just want to suck you and dry. Just keep going. But folks, Ron, thank you, Ron. We appreciate it. We'll see you about this time next week, and we'll continue then.
And thanks to JD.
All right, thank you. Good to have Ron. He'll be filling in for JD in the month of December. So we had to cut it off a little bit short tonight. Okay, we could have gone another half hour, and I think it all would have been a blessing. But we'll get a chance to do it again next week. Speaking of weeks, my week ends on Thursday night because on Friday night, the Duke of Hazards, Steve Hazards, takes over the control panel, and he brings us the program. He starts about 9 p.m. Eastern, as we do here, but he'll play some retro music. We kind of loosen up, let our hair down, and then at 10 o'clock, he will unleash my perspective and comment, and we always look forward to that. It's a wonderful chance to take in the week in review from through the lens of a Christian world view. So, folks, I greatly appreciate Ron filling in for JD. It's good to know that JD has got through his surgery and is recovering at home. It is so good to have Steve fill in for us on Friday nights. Give me a chance to tackle that honey-do list on Fridays anyway. But in any event, I appreciate so much all of you who join us in the pjnet.tv chat room, or maybe you watch us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you find it. We hope that we have brought encouragement and inspiration from God's Word into your life in a way that you can appreciate it and live it out each day. So, before I leave, I'd like to challenge you to challenge yourself by asking these 2 questions. What's the boldest thing you've ever done for Jesus Christ? Second question, when was that? Let's not be satisfied with either answer.